Now you see, this is what happens when multiple truck-coons try to isekai the same protagonist all at the same time. This one opened with him having returned to Tokyo City with the end of the colder seasons. And after approving of global warming, he tried to recollect the second coming of the girls who had originally sealed him away. Hey, with Toei, I wouldn't be surprised if they used some of those names. With that, he then sought out a new residence, which seemed to be the penthouse of this dude and his secretary, who tried to call the police when the clown devil arrived. However, the secretary was stopped by the man, who seemed to fear the cops, perhaps because he was trying to hide some shady business dealings. Yeah, should figure Kotake would eventually get into dealing after realizing that some of his classmates had to be on something. With his new residence secured, he then went about using some of his particles to deal with the girls. And while he had been surprisingly lenient when dealing with the penthouse owner, him actually came up with some pretty brutal ways of disposing of the girls, including by traffic accident, falling through a manhole, and being crushed by a bunch of construction beams. You know, if this were a certain other show, then things might not have worked out so well. By the way, anyone remember the show and the memes it generated? But yeah, the girls all managed to come out unscathed thanks to pure luck, which was kind of cleverly ironic in Miyako's case, as it was thanks to being distracted by a black cat that she managed to avoid being crushed. With that, him decided to up his game with some more direct attacks by possessing some people and Akti again. Yeah, Miyako, you might want to get yourself a new plushie at this point. I hear this little guy is nice and cuddly. But yeah, a pretty boy Momoko tried to hit on got possessed, and I can only really feel bad for this kid on multiple levels. Also, I'm pretty sure he's the one in real danger. Meanwhile, Akti pulled some pranks on its owner, and Kaoru probably got the worst of the three. Oh crap, he's been possessed by the spirit of the ultimate warrior. Fortunately, Peach managed to pick up on the him particles and had the girls collect the tainted items. With that, Utonium managed to expel him's influence with a new portable chemical Z-beam, which, yeah, I'm pretty sure I owned a super soaker like that. Just one more wrestling reference, please.
Bell rings, we are underway.
Oh, I love Sami Zayn. All that was left was Momoko, who said she hadn't even encountered any blackened enemies, whilst in the presence of one, technically two if you count Sakurako. And yeah, I think I got the best laugh out of this when they probably would have believed Momoko was in no danger until she said that she was. Nope, you're a meme who deserves to retire. With that, they immediately tracked them down and repelled the him particles.
What an
odd thing to say.
Thankfully, they didn't let Momoko sulk on that very specific reason for being dumped, as they realized that him was back and posing quite the threat. Later that night, him decided to pull a classic Sentai/Power Rangers endgame attack on the protagonist's home base. This included destroying a lot of their equipment and stealing their chemical Z. And I gotta say, while this version of the effeminate devil isn't quite as threatening as the OG, I mean that one managed to conquer the world in an alternate timeline, I will say the Z version does have a bit more of a presence. Again, for at least the latter half of the series, Toei has been writing him more like a classic Sentai final boss. Definitely one of the goofier ones, but you also can't deny that his presence hasn't been felt throughout the series, making an episode like this where he starts going all out feel like a decent payoff to a series worth of build-up. It's certainly a lot better than a final boss who just comes the hell out of nowhere. With that, the girls were deployed to try and take back their stolen chemical Z. And once again, Miyako proved to be the MVP of this team thanks to her ability to talk to animals, which I think also required her to raise her pitch a few decibels. Eventually, they were led to Hoppongi Hills, which yes, is a reference to the real-life Roppongi Hills in Tokyo. My family and I actually have gone to it almost every time we take a trip to Japan, and thanks to the Yakuza games, now I know it's apparently someplace you really don't want to be out at night. Yeah, apparently it's famous for being a den for some of the more covert dealings of the Yakuza, which also does seem to imply that Penthouse owner was working with them. Don't you just love it when kid shows reference very real mafia activities? Anyway, they arrived at, I guess, their equivalent of the Mori Tower, which is likely what Yakuza's Millennium Tower was also based on. Thus, it was the appropriate stage for somewhat of a final boss fight with him. After having dumped all of their Chemical Z, he launched an attack by bringing a giant spider sculpture to life, which yes is also a real thing in Roppongi that I've even seen in person. The Maman, as it's known, was created by the late Louise Bourgeois in 1999, with the one at Roppongi being one of 6 castings of the original made in Canada. So of course, the girls had to be delicate with such a famous sculpture by completely destroying it. Y'all have something against modern art or something? I mean, come on, what's wrong with the sculpture of a pregnant spider that you can go under? Okay, I answered my own question. Regardless, it managed to provide enough of a distraction for him to steal their weapons and turn them against the girls in ways they didn't expect. Most notably, he managed to replace Miyako's usually harmless bubbles with lightning spheres. He also managed to do likewise with Momoko's yo-yo on top of turning it into something that Killua would be proud of. It was a pretty effective beatdown that managed to incapacitate everyone except Momoko. Without the weapons, all seemed lost until...
What can you possibly do?
Improvise.
With their weapons back in hand, they managed to almost instantly recreate what Tim did with them, which, yeah, is a bit of an ass pull, but whatever, it was an awesome moment for the girls, so it gets a pass. Same kind of for the professor, as he revealed that he had wisely filled up several spare canisters and kept them in separate locations just in case something like this could happen. Injured and caught at gunpoint, him retreated, though they were at least able to maintain his final boss aura, with the pros pointing out they likely could have held out a little longer if they hadn't arrived. With that though, the episode ended with the girls calling it a night, as Momoko and Kaoru had to deal with the true fears that come with being a middle school girl. This was by no means the deepest or most emotionally driven episode of this whole series, and in fact, it was pretty straightforward, and in a way, maybe that was its greatest strength. I mean, as the title suggested, this was just meant to reintroduce him as a direct threat to the girls, and how much of a difference it makes when he's fighting them directly. And thanks to some of the best fight animation of the series, it certainly got that across. On a bit more of a personal note, I do like how they managed to incorporate some real-life locations that I've been to, but come on, think about it. Japanese him in the den of the Yakuza. How's that not perfect? Even for a character who is a literal clown, I think it would be a crime to not have a villain with the voice of Frieza fight some heroes more than once in the series. Him took full advantage of this nigh endgame appearance by acting as relatively threatening as possible, at least for this show. Sure, none of his plans worked out, but they were still pretty ingenious and could have led to some pretty brutal results. From there, he enacted an effective head-on attack, and had it not been for one lucky shot from Momoko, he might have won. On that note though, our main heroine had a good showing. Sure, she's never been the sharpest tool in the shed, but she also does know how to think on her feet and has some pretty useful otaku knowledge, though I think the OG Blossom also used a ribbon attack, though I can't find a clip. Regardless, this was an awesome moment for her that made her feel like an actual leader to this team. And while the story here was rather simplistic with the girls fending off him, got so many pronouns, it was a very nice looking simple story that really got across the strength of the villains and heroines alike. It got to the point that the usual BGM started adding in some lyrics from all of the girls' VAs. Seriously, we haven't really been able to talk about it much here, but the OST for this show is pretty awesome, especially this song, Touch Me. But yeah, overall, while a pretty simplistic tale, as they say, simple is best, which in this case allowed for a lot of good action and an effective way of reintroducing a big bad into the show proper. Obviously, this guy still has a few more tricks up his crab claws that are going to make for quite the finale to the show. Right now, we're in the middle of drafting up several new projects alongside the usual Precure stuff. The new year is just around the corner, and there's a lot we want to do in 2023. How much we will be able to do remains to be seen, but please do stick with this channel, and we'll see where we end up. And until then though, for now my friends, and
爆発は春の季語じゃよ。
Sure is, Prof. Sure is.